Hallelujah. Praise the Lord. Welcome. Let's begin by connecting with the highest in us, that highest part of us, which is willing to give everything that it can possibly give in service to one and all. Let's chant one Om. So we have been discussing Sutra 18 in Book 2. Remember, the first sutra in Book 2, Tapas, Swadhyaya, Ishwari, Pranadhana, constitute yoga in action, and practicing these minimizes the obstacles and lead ones to samadhi. So there's the inspiration for the book, and Sutra 18 is on the journey of Patanjali elaborating on some points he's mentioned so that maybe we will have a clear understanding of reality and be better able to practice. So I was thinking we move on to 19, but I haven't totally finished 18, so let's just be clear here. 18 says, the seen, as in that which is seen, is of the nature of the gunas, illumination, activity, and inertia. That's tamas, rajas, sattva, and consists of elements and sense organs whose purpose is to provide both experiences and liberation to the Purusha. So we've talked a lot about that last part, but let's go back to the first part. So all that is seen is of the nature of the gunas. Now that is profound. Everything can be classified as tamas, rajas, or sattva. Tamas is dark energy. Rajas is active energy, you could say, and sattva is the serene, calm, tranquil, peaceful energy. So everything falls in those categories. And through the work of Dr. Hawkins, he made some very interesting discoveries. And essentially, that which is tamasic can be on the level of thought. But as far as things that are seen, this is talking about the seen. So we'll talk about the densest layer here. And actually in the next sutra, he goes into the less dense, more dense categories. But anyway, so everything that is seen, it's either tamasic, rajasic, or sattvic. So sattvic would be the highest quality. And I was just thinking moksha is beyond sattva, and I was thinking, well, there can be an enlightened being who would be in moksha, but perhaps the point is that that which is in the moksha state in him isn't seen. His body is one thing, but his moksha spirit is another. But so traditionally, just to think of, well, and so everything can fall into those gunas, and then he tops it off. Patanjali says, and consists of elements and sense organs. So that's fascinating too. Everything made of elements and sense organs. So perhaps the sense organs are different than the elements, but they might be the same too. It's hard to, I'm not an expert in this one, this point. But we can say the elements, right? So in Ayurveda and yogic science, the elements, earth. I'm going from the most dense to the least dense here, I think. Earth, water, fire, air, ether. 5 elements. Everything is composed of those. Fascinating to think about. So most, things that are dense probably have a lot of earth energy, right? But right, the body too, it looks dense, right? But we even know scientifically there's 80% water, right? Makes up the body, and that's amazing. Doesn't look like it, but maybe it does look like it to people who are tuned into seeing that way. I don't know. So everything in nature can be classified under one of the gunas. And essentially the journey is upwards through the gunas to moksha. So from a dark state, you go to an active state. From an active state, you go to a tranquil state. From a tranquil state, you go to a transcendent, liberated state. And, the saying, we become what we think about, and also that we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. So, a good way to move into rajas, perhaps sattva, and then into moksha is to spend people who are already spend time with people in sattva, or spend time with books, or places that are sattvic, Saint churches. I was going to say St. Paul's Cathedral, St. Patrick's in New York. Beautiful energy there. You go in there, your whole consciousness is changed just by even seeing it from the outside. It's transformative. Then going in there, you're in a whole other dimension. I mean, the hustle and bustle of New York City on one side of those doors, you walk through, transformed. That's the power of sattva. It's so powerful. And that's just testimony there that love conquers all. Love is so much more powerful than fear. Perfect love casts out fear. Not to say New York City is fearful otherwise, but the sattva of St. Patrick's Cathedral casts out anything less than that in there. I mean, it's just an overwhelming, powerful presence there. Just like if you're in the presence of, a saint or a sage, it's, I've been in the presence of, I'd say at least one, if not a few. But, and this is not from my direct experience necessarily, but the saying is that it's very hard to be nasty and surly, around uplifted people. It's like speaking vulgar language doesn't make sense. It doesn't feel right. It's like because there's sattva or even their moksha, it just silences all of that. And perhaps you've had an experience being around an uplifted person or in a beautiful space, right? Like a sunset or whatever it is, the mountains. And it's so beautiful that the mind goes totally silent. Everything leaves. There's no room for any tamas or rajas. Or, yeah, it's the sattva. So that's a beautiful thing. And just a quick rundown, tamasic things. A few of the lower, this is according to Dr. David Hawkins' research, highly recommend, but a few of the most dangerous animals on the planet would be in that dark tamasic energy, as well as the most dangerous humans on the planet, right? They're in that very dark, low energy, like the Komodo dragon. It's not to say it's evil or anything, right? It's just its nature, so you don't need to condemn it, but you acknowledge it, and hence we generally stay away from Komodo dragons. Even probably seeing one in a zoo is probably kind of terrifying. And then, the more peaceful animals have a slightly higher level of consciousness, right? So they're more rajasic, and you even get some of those enlightened animals that enter, sattvic realms, like the Coco, the ape or something, who's just like a beautiful soul of a ape. I don't know much about him, but I've heard stories. Okay. So people, books, right? A lot of the books can actually be in that beyond sattva even. They're just liberated books. So spend time with those. Patanjali's book, a liberated book. There's one other thing I wanted to say here. So everything in creation, right? Everything's seen. It's either in a state of tamas, rajas, or sattva. And to make progress on the journey, spend more time, assess where you are. Skillful means, so if you're tamasic, sattva might not resonate with you in that moment, but activity, right? Get up and do something. There's this saying, break a window if necessary, right? Do anything. Get off your butt. Just go exercise. Do something. get into the rajas, and then from the rajas you go to sattva. So that's an example of skillful means. Upaya, meeting people where you're at, meeting people where they are at, meeting yourself where you are at. Very skillful and essential. Right? We can't just always be sitting, meditation. I mean, maybe we can, who knows? Point being, Patanjali here, it's cool to see that he has these statements. I mean, imagine being around someone who makes this statement as a matter of fact and as if for the first time, maybe. I mean, I guess Patanjali likely had a teacher, but a lot of it maybe just came from his direct experience in profound meditative insight. So imagine someone telling you for the first time, the scene is of the nature of the gunas, illumination, activity, and inertia, and consists of the elements and sense organs, whose purpose is to provide both experiences and liberation to the Purusha. Gosh, what a sage. What goodness. Someone to say that, man. Legendary. Legendary. The sutras are legendary. So be aware, and you can, so the other point to make about that everything is of the nature of the gunas. So you can think most objects are neutral, more or less. They're right at the neutral point, which you could say is like the lowest of rajas. They're not tamas, so they're not like dangerous or anything. They're just neutral. Like, because think about it, what matters here, the more subtle, the more powerful. So the subtle energy of the intention behind the use of things is what could shape its consciousness one way or another. Like a gun, right, is neutral by itself, 200. It's the neutral level. Because a gun can be used for good or bad purposes. So it's kind of the intention there that might lift it up or lift it down. Food as well is more or less neutral. But the intention behind preparing the food can raise it up, right? And blessed food actually raises it up. Hence, praying before meals and eating makes a lot of sense in a lot of ways. It increases the quality of the food. And money is another good example of a neutral energy. It can be used for good or bad purposes. So the intention behind the action is very powerful and significant. And so, especially on the spiritual path, to keep that in mind with all things, the intention, what is my motivation here? What's my intention? Am I intending to be of service, or am I intending something selfish? Selfish or selfless, right? Am I focused just on my own petty, separate sense of survival and preservation, or am I oriented towards the greater good, towards the benefit of all creation, spirit of dedication? The more we can be in that, the more sattva predominates our life, and maybe we get a glimpse of moksha. So, interesting to look around. Everything is made of the elements, the sense organs, and all those that can be seen is categorized in tamas, rajas, or sattva. So you can see, looking around, most things are pretty neutral, right? Beatles music is pretty uplifting. Classical music, maybe even more uplifting, maybe even sattvic, right? Books, right? Different qualities of books, different experiences. Chairs, neutral. These objects behind me, probably neutral. Things that help you heal would be, positive. Dogs, positive, of course, loving, beautiful creatures. Oh, and then interestingly, so remember the three great gifts: the human birth, desire to know the truth, and a teacher to show you the way. And it's only in the human birth that one can ascend the ladder, right? So you think of humans range the whole scale of consciousness, right? You have so-called evil people, terrorists, and you have so-called saints and sages, beautiful, devotional, purely loving expressions. So we have the whole range. So the human experience is the only life form that really can advance on the path or go backwards, of course. But the rest of animals do not do that. Dogs, think of your dog. It's steady. It's steady consciousness. It's not changing. I mean, sometimes it gets hungry, it barks. Maybe it gets a little feisty and defensive, but its life context is always the same. It's consistent. It has the same values guiding its life all the time. Loyalty,